What shall we start? The same subject or?
Inshallah, what is the remaining from Manzur Chinioti Sahib and the other mullahs? What happened to them?
Manzur Chinoti have already told you. You want some more?
Hadhrat said that there is still
happening constantly. Another very important thing, very interesting. You know, when you beat a dog on the face like this, the ears are also covered. You know, the whole face was covered with that mark, like this. You know. So a very interesting thing. Manzur Chinoti met with a very serious accident. He was saved, but he lost his hearing completely. For a long time, now it has come back gradually, slowly. But for a long time he was hiding it in shame, lest people should know it. And where he was hospitalized, he knew very little. It was an Ahmadi doctor who was attending him. And his son was requesting him not to tell anybody. So this is something which we can't publicly challenge naturally, because it's a matter of confidence. But I just mentioned it to you. You wanted some more. But there is also some more, isn't there? How he has been brought to disgrace. This continues. You know, I concentrated in fact on that particular period of Mubahala. That was, you know, intense, you know, events taking place soon after, you know, other as if they were moving bumper to bumper. You know, that was the style of things happening to him. First of all, you know, he wrote to someone in England a letter of pity, and a very pathetic letter, in his own hands. The letter I have seen in his own hand. And Allah saw to it that it reaches us. We didn't have to bribe anyone, but this letter reached us. So the person thought it fit. He was not impressed by Manzur Chinoti at all. He was in correspondence. Then when he saw such letters, he got disgusted. And he passed the letter on to someone who passed the letter on to me. अब मुझे मजलिस आलमी तहफ़्फ़ुज़ ख़त्म नबूवत की तरफ से 3 साल से कोई दावत नहीं मिल रही. He used to come here to chase me and to destroy me, and he was the representative of Almi Khatm Nabuwat and Ziya, etc. And he was a big name in those days. So he said, I'm chasing him and I'll destroy him completely and demolish him and Ahmadiyya altogether. This was his big talk. Now what he writes in his own hand is, अब मुझे मजलिस आलमी तहफ़्फ़ुज़ ख़त्म नबूवत की तरफ से 3 साल से कोई दावत नहीं मिल रही. Now for the last 3 years, I am not receiving any invitation from the international Khatm Nabuwat organization. In 1985, a year after my arrival, this conference was first held by the joint efforts of Abdul Hafiz Makki, Ziaul Qasimi, and myself. He writes. Raqib means the writer of this letter, in Wembley Hall. Then the Majlis itself captured it and monopolized it. It's a strange expression. Almi Tahaffuz Khatm Nabuwat was the Majlis who actually had every right to organize things and manage. So he said, we were the 3 who organized it. But now Almi Majlis Tahaffuz Khatm Nabuwat has usurped the thing and monopolized it unlawfully, that is to say. It belongs to them now. हमने झगड़ा मुनासिब न समझा. We thought it's not proper to fight it out with them. So we kept quiet. Still, for 2 years, they kept sending me invitations, but every time they promised to give me the ticket, they failed to give the promise. No tickets. Just empty invitation. These, he said, Almi Khatme Nubuwat, these Khatme Nubuwat people, this is their character. They promise people but never fulfill the promises. What is the symptom of munafiq according to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This is it. They're all munafiqeen according to him, and they say he is a munafiq. पिछले साल हज के मौके पर मुफ्ती मकबूल अहमद साहब ग्लासगो वाले हरम शरीफ में मिले. Last year, on the occasion of Hajj, I happened to meet Mufti Maqbool of Glasgow. उन्होंने दराफ्त किया, अब कॉन्फ्रेंस में शिरकत क्यों नहीं कर रहा है, क्या हुआ है, मतलब शिरकत कर रहे हैं या नहीं? Are you coming for the conference or not? We don't see you anymore. मैंने कहा अगर टिकट और दावत मौसूल हुई तो जरूर हाजिर होऊंगा. Two things, two conditions: a ticket and invitation. Of course then I'll come. उन्होंने फरमाया टिकट जरूर आएगा. He said it's a must, the ticket is going to arrive this time. It will reach you. टिकट छोड़ दावत भी मौसूल ना हुई. At least the previous people had the decency of sending me invitations. This time neither the ticket nor invitation. Letter. He said, these are the people with whom we are dealing. He said, I, Manzur Chinoti, have to deal with Khatme Nubuwat people, and this is their character. It is in his own hand. What else, what disgrace do you expect other than these which I have just quoted? Please. But Manzur Chinioti reached London in the year 1889. He had promised that out of this Mubala, the whole Jamaat Ahmadiyya will be wiped out. When he was reminded again, did you say that? He said, no, all right. I am sure Mirza Tahir Ahmad will die before the end of this year. So he arrived here to see my death. And from here, when the time was closing, he got very nervous. By the 15th of September, his year was to end. And he waited until August, nothing was happening. Because Allah didn't desire it. So he issued a statement, very panicky statement, telling the people what actually has happened. That you don't see. The world can't see, but I'm telling you this has happened. He says, like the British Empire, whose sun is set, so I am announcing it today, this year, on the 19th of August, 89, that the sun is set on Ahmadiyya now. Finished.
It might take a century.
Gone, finished. So like the British has squeezed into the British Isles now, so Ahmadiyya also has got squeezed into the British Isles, and that's all there is left to it. And now I announce about this, whatever is left in this small portion in the British Isles, it says it is in the throes of death. I can hear the last sobs of death, they are taking. So this was his announcement of the winning of Mubala. How good. Can you win Mubala like this, like these statements? All that he had dreamed had not come true. So that was the last, then I think he took up the shoe and slapped his own self. This is like this,
Yes.
He said, enough is by other hands, now let me make the last stroke on with my own hands. This is his stroke. London, Millat, in Millat this was published, London, 1920 August 1989. That year or the year after, the last year, he visited here and attended the conference. He stood up for the speech, and they told him, you have only 5 minutes. So he got angry. He said, I don't speak in 5 minutes. All right. It's all right, I'll use 5 minutes. Spoke for 5 minutes. Then he, in his speech, of course he elongated, it took longer time. He appealed to the audience that, look here, shame on you. Mirza Tahir Ahmad, imagine what sort of person he is. Yet when he asks for 100,000 pounds, Ahmadis give him £1 million instead. That is how his voice is responded to, He said, Labbaik. He asked for 100,000 and they give £1 million. And I ask you for 100 pounds and you don't give me even £1. Is this how the Muslims treat their leaders? It's his confession, We had team sent and they recorded all these things. And then he said, all right, he threw a sheet. Put something on it. Shame on you. Do something now. Some put it to 5 pennies, some 10 pennies. Hardly, rarely you'd see a note of £1. That was all he received, and he gathered and took it away. So this was his real purpose of visiting here. So when he had nothing left here, there was no money coming in, no ticket, nothing. So his zeal to serve Islam also died out. That is the verse applicable to him. He was only doing takzeeb to earn money. And no money was left, so he left the takzeeb, at least on this forum. So then he concentrated on his own area in Chinioti. What he was doing there, how he amassed money and misappropriated others' properties, that is a story, the last on this program, which I'll tell you after you have translated.
Okay, but I think Hudud mentioned this, that he was, they summoned to, and they asked them, the lawyers were asking him where the money and all these things.
So I'm coming to that. Here I'm sending him back from London now.
Yes.
Having been absolutely frustrated and shown by God that you are a liar, and you are a shameless liar. He had nothing left here, no tickets, no money, no invitation, no response. So I'm going to dispatch him back, and then I'll pursue him instead of he pursuing me. Yeah. Now he started misappropriating the money he had gathered there in the name of Khatm al-Nubuwwat, and he had been repeatedly appealing for funds to build a madrasa, a place where he could teach and train students to fight Ahmadiyyat and so on and so forth. So he gathered some money from local people and also all around Pakistan, And when he had that money and he built that, he misappropriated the thing. Madrasa became his own personal property. Shops were built there instead of Khatm al-Nubuwwat libraries, and he rented them out and got all the money for himself and his children. And he was not satisfied with that only. So the place which he had acquired was small. So there was an old graveyard. So he occupied the graveyard. Even he robbed the dead. Because the living could not be robbed by him. They had become too clever. Poor dead. They couldn't defend themselves. So he spread his madrasa over that. And for that, I'm going to read from the newspaper Musabat, 22nd May 1995. This is the latest. After that, we'll bury him in the same Qabristan.
Yes.
Now this is a statement published by Zafar Abbas, who was MNA, Member National Assembly of Pakistan. Manzur Chinoti was member of the Punjab Assembly only. This gentleman has been belonging, their family is a very powerful, strong family, and he was elected member of National Assembly of Pakistan. He had a small mosque built in his area, on one of his lands. They are very big landlords, and it had become so, in so much disrepair that he decided to demolish it and build another mosque instead. So because he happened to be Shia, whom the mullah hates, and because, as I told you, he has been also insulting Hadhrat Imam Hussain, so he made it a propaganda issue and started delivering speeches against Zafar Abbas that, look here, he has demolished a mosque and will not tolerate this. So he made a statement that it is my own land, what has he got to do with it? And as far as the mosque is concerned, it was in a very bad shape. So we want to build a new mosque, which we will soon, and he will see a better, big, new, beautiful mosque. So what is the harm there? But he said, he himself, now I tell you what he is. He said his Jamia, Arabia, the great Jamia, was built only on 5 marlas. That was all the place which belonged to that. 5 marla, what measure do you have in Arabia?
Faddan, acre.
Acre, that's right.
Yes.
5 marla, there are 8 canals to an acre, and 20 marlas to a canal. And 5 marla is that much where he had built a Jamia. This belonged to him, he says, I admit. This was his property. But then his needs expanded and the living would not give him any place. So all around was Qabristan, was a graveyard. So he started encroaching upon the land of the graveyard until he finished by misappropriating 14 canals of the graveyard. All the dead buried under his madrasa and his personal properties, they turned into his personal property. They would be cursing. He may not hear it because he's become deaf. He was deaf even before. So Allah knows, this is Mullah, who had been, bragging so much. I am the Fatih, I am the conqueror of Rabwa, I have defeated his Mubala, his forefathers, his father, his elder brother. Now is his turn. When my turn came, this is what he came to. Because the living would not give him a land.
Yeah,
they relied from the dead, buried under him, We have many cases of those who got completely destroyed and demolished by Allah during this sensitive period of the Mubala. And from different places Allah picked out those who were outstanding in their rejection of Ahmadiyyat, in their hostility towards Ahmadiyyat, in their obnoxious and vicious language against the leadership of Ahmadiyyat. Mahmood Mirpuri of Birmingham was one of them. Let's come back to London and see what happened here. It's a very interesting story of how these mullahs try to win the acclaim from the people by just making false claims, big, tall claims, and there is nothing following it. There is no substance in their claims. It's a very interesting example of this Mahmood Mirpuri. First, let me introduce him, what he was. He was from the state of Jammu and Kashmir. About him it is written that he was a son of the soil of whom the entire area was proud. A great religious scholar who had qualified and graduated from Medina University He was the General Secretary of Islamic Shariat Council, Britannia, the entire England, and Great Britain. Of Jamiyat Ahl Hadith Central, Britannia, he was the president. He was the editor of a magazine, Sirat-e-Mustaqim, and it is claimed about him that he was the first among those who participated in the liberation movement of Kashmir, perhaps. Now he started abusing Ahmadiyyat and trying to win his bread out of the same, like Manzur Chinioti has been doing. Once in 1985, a year after my arrival, it went into his head to challenge me for Mubahala. You see?
You started it.
Yes, mashallah. In 1985, and this is Roznama Jang, London, 7/3/85, 7th March 85. He says, मैं Mirza Tahir Ahmad को challenge देता हूँ. I throw challenge to Mirza Tahir Ahmad that he should come and do his mubahala with me, and that will decide whether Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was a true prophet of Allah or was a liar who had concocted things for himself. We have this claim and we have this firm faith that no sort of any prophet can come after Hadhrat Muhammad Rasulullah, subordinate or no, old and new. No way can any prophet come again after him. Whoever will claim to be a prophet will be a liar who would be attributing falsehood to Allah. As such, he will be the greatest of liars. People, poor Ahmadis, we don't know what sort of greed, incites them to become Ahmadis. They must have been given false promises of this benefit and that benefit. While when they become Ahmadis, they are robbed and they are deprived of their lawful properties and even homes that are demolished. This is the price they pay for becoming Ahmadiyya. But look at this man. He says, I don't know what sort of greed entices them to Ahmadiyya. But I invite Mirza Tahir Ahmad to this. I said, I am telling him, for God's sake, stop deceiving them and making them the goats of sacrifices. You are making them goats of sacrifice. Why not you become the goat of sacrifice yourself by accepting my mubahala? The whole world will know, and these poor things will be released out of your clutches, and they will breathe a sigh of relief. So what a beautiful solution he had in mind, and he published it. Still found in all the papers published at that date. He said, I am issuing mubahala to Mirza Tahir instead of making Ahmadis goats for sacrifices. He should offer himself. He should have the honor to do it. To me, he was no man, and I had no, spoken or unspoken permission from Allah from a while. I kept quiet. I didn't answer that. But he was already in it. There was no time limit laid. His challenge was open. The moment I accepted it, he was on. The mubahala was on, This is how the year 1988 arrived. And he knew his position then. He knew he was caught. There was no retrieve whatsoever. Already he had thrown the mubahala, and now when I issued the mubahala, I made it a point to send a copy to him by registered letter, which we have got receipts here, by which we have receipts, signed receipts of his acceptance and receiving that mubahala challenge. On the 15th of July 1988, this was sent to him through registered letter, the receipt we have got. When he received it, he became panicky. He knew that he had already accepted the Mubarak because he had initiated it. So in response, he wrote and announced in his own paper, Siratul Mustaqim, as far as the Mubahala is concerned, that Mubahala can only be initiated by a person who claims to be a prophet of Allah. Kazzab, you know, the one who does, he is a Kazzab. According to him, after Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, whoever does is a Kazzab. And only a Kazzab, according to him, can send the Mubahala. But a prophet of God, he says, not Kazzab. By logic, we say he turns out to be Kazzab. What he says is just simply this, that only a claimant to prophethood has the right to throw Mubahala. And that too, when Allah tells him to do it, not otherwise. So when he had sent me the Mubarak 3 years ago, he got himself committed completely that he is one of those who would fall under the sway of this verse, لَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضُ الْأَقَاوِيلِ لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ فَمَا مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ عَنْهُ حَاجِزِينَ. So you see how this works. It's a fascinating thing, you know. He's trying to run away from me after he was caught. Then he says, इसलिए अब मिर्जा ताहिर अहमद को मिर्जा साहब की नुमाइंदगी करने या फरीक बनने की कोई जरूरत नहीं. Said, I advise Mirza Tahir Ahmad, he should not make any attempt to represent Mirza Ghulam Muhammad of Qadian anymore. जिसने नबूवत का दावा किया था वो अपने ऐलान या दुआ के अंजाम से 2-4 हो चुका है. The one who claimed to be a prophet, he has met his end. So let's bury the dead and finish with it. No more Mubahalas, please.
Close the subject.
Close the subject. Then he says, नए चैलेंज और दावे महज चक्कर और फ्रॉड हैं. Now when you throw challenges of Mubahala, they are just frauds and efforts to deceive. And that is what he had done 3 years ago. मुसलमानों को चाहिए कि उन्हें जर्रा भर अहमियत न दें. I advise the Muslims not to pay the least attention to their challenges. Siratul Mustaqim. But because, as I told you, he himself had issued a challenge to me, which he had not withdrawn before my challenge was sent to him as registered by a registered post, and because he himself claimed that whoever is a prophet of Allah, whom Allah himself has permitted to go for a Mubahala, only he can issue a challenge for Mubahala. So he brought himself under the wrath of God. So clearly, there's no escape. This is what happened in July 1988, a month after my challenge was sent to him. And in October 1988, October is a very fatal month for these ulama. This Maulana was traveling. He had gone somewhere along with 5 members of his family. When he was returning to Newcastle, suddenly his car got jammed on the highway. It just wouldn't move. The wheels came to a standstill suddenly, and there was a heavy truck behind which crushed it to, to pulp and rode it and went over it. The result was Mahmood Mirpuri himself, his 8-year-old son, his mother-in-law died on the spot, and one wife, widow, was left to mourn him, and a small child. But they were very seriously injured, so they were removed to the hospital. After having been treated in the hospital, when the wife insisted that I should go and attend the funeral of my husband, it was large, the corpse was kept for a few days, or maybe the second day it happened, but she returned just to pay a short visit to send off the husband. And because he was a great Maulana, as I told you, he was a very popular and very well-known person. So quite a few people, 3 days after it happened, 30th of October, quite a few people had gathered there to commiserate with the family and to say the final prayer for this man. And they got all jam-packed on the first floor of the house. And it's collapsed, along with his wife. And there was hue and cry and wailing which could be heard from many houses around. First the crash, and then all the mourners also, suffered so heavily. There were many, a very large number from among them, because according to this paper, I'll tell you, 100 mourners met their end by falling with the collapsing floor of the first floor house.
Wounded or?
100 wounded. Seriously, I don't know how many died, but I'm reading from the first news.
Yes, yes.
And many ambulances were called. Imagine 100 people getting injured suddenly. How many ambulances would be needed? The whole area was in commotion about this. And this newspaper, English newspaper, says that the wife, which came from the hospital, was returned immediately to the hospital, meeting with the new accident and new injuries. Now this is how Allah treats the liars. And they still don't see. It's a fit case of somebody poking his nose into where he shouldn't have, in Allah's affairs. And how Allah caught him, snared him and snared him. He threw the challenge, then tried to wriggle out of it. And during that course, he made such stupid statements as would annoy God. And they did. So this is Mirpuri.
What is the name of this paper, Hadhrat?
This paper, English paper, is Birmingham, Daily News, Birmingham. Right?
يقول أمير المؤمنين أن
You got a
عندنا
photocopy of this.
أن عندنا قائمة.
This is a Molama, and this is a house which collapsed, and this and that, Between this,
Yes.
he says, this is what I believe.
Yes.
So I'm going to swear to Allah, this is my Mubala.
It is here, yes.
And you say, no, he is an honest person. The challenge I threw was 10th of June. This man met with his end on 10th of October. The date was also very reminiscent of the same. Now, there are some other cases, but the time is over. So I think enough for the time being. Later on when we return, if we don't have any other more pressing matter, then we'll start with reading a few other examples. Okay?